So today we're talking with Gloria McRae of wedge15.com. And I first heard about Gloria through a mutual friend of ours who shared an article that you wrote about owning your prenatal pregnancy and birthing experience, which owning is a really big word in my vocabulary. So I fell in love with you right away. And then it's been such a treat to watch you be this bold woman and entrepreneur with your belly all along the way, not seeming like you have to cut it off from the neck down in order to be that person, that I can just see visually how integrated your identity has been. And so it's been really inspiration to me. So I am excited to share Gloria with everybody today. We are going to try something that we haven't done before, which we're going to talk before the baby is outside of your body, while the baby is still symbiotically with you. And then hopefully, something willing, we'll talk again afterwards.
Sounds
and
good.
see what, if anything, has shifted. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I think that, that format probably has some embedded therapeutic benefits for me anyways. So it's my pleasure and excited. And where in the world are you located?
I am in Austin, Texas.
Great. So, and I'm in Toronto, Canada. So we're doing cross-border,
Yeah.
cross-border fun.
International. Awesome.
Love
So let's start by talking about you and your creative work life. So tell us a little bit about the work you do and what it's all about, like what purpose drives your work.
Absolutely. So my husband and I,
Yeah.
in addition to now becoming parents together, had merged our otherwise previously separate sort of freelance businesses into a corporation a few years ago. So Wedge 15 is our first baby, and it's in a corporate form, but it has really had our attention. And in that company, we help other businesses and other organizations build momentum for what they're doing. So for us, that's been shifting over time, and it started as exclusively consulting, and it was digital consulting and social media training and marketing and branding and a lot of the obvious things that any business or organization needs to start to make sure that the pieces are well-rounded so that their momentum can build. And that could be momentum building for the nonprofit clients we had, for social causes that they cared about and awareness, or for the businesses, it was, it's always about growing the business, growing people's audience base, and then, of course, sales. However, that's also wonderfully shifted as things do. It's our 6th year of working together, and now it's probably about 50% of our business is products. So our book, our collaboration kit, our digital program, our online school, branding school. The other half is custom consulting projects with people. So this is all very timely, of course, for becoming a mom and for us juggling, I think, more than probably usual. And so I'm so excited for the post-interview to see how this actually works out. That the two of us are in our business and also going to, sort of adapt to parenting, and that our business has evolved intentionally so that we could make more space for family as well as we do what we do.
Awesome. So tell me sort of what conversations you and your husband are having about this transition, because your life is so integrated in all ways that both of you are going to be brand new parents. So that will affect your business, and it will affect your home life. It will affect your relationship. So what sort of conversations are you having to prepare for it?
Love it. So I think this is one of those cool places where I could bring in a Canadian cultural context, which is a little bit different than the American context. However, as an entrepreneur, I actually think I have I didn't expect this, when I thought about children years ago when I started my career, but we typically have a year off. Canadians culturally are paid, our sort of welfare state is, you pay into through your taxes, EI, employment insurance is what they call it, which can then either be if you're laid off or if you go on maternity. And so you get at least topped up about 50% of what you were earning through a job. Now, as a self-employed couple with one source of revenue, everything pouring through the company, we had decided that we weren't going to pay into those benefits, and that we would try to just flow with it so that, again, for cash flow purposes of growing a business, the last thing we wanted to do as we grew over the last 6 years was pay into taxes in advance. With one day, someday, something might happen. We'd rather invest those dollars or buy life insurance or other things. So for us, it's a bit different. And what we're talking through is, okay, everyone around us is like, so you're going to take the year off? And I'm like, probably not. And so we're really trying to invent something that captures for our own mental sanity what this actually will be. Is this a maternity leave? Is this a parental leave? Is this a break? What is this thing? And so I think the biggest fun and challenge that we're going to face and that we talk about is there a time frame where you should just say that I'm not available or you're not available? Or should we be flowing, as we can, just with sort of an out of office alert, letting people know that we're more occupied than usual with a newborn. So for us, that is the predominant conversation. And then, we're looking at more traditional roles as well, but it doesn't feel right. The idea that I'm just sort of like in a bedroom with a baby, breastfeeding, sorting all that out while he's then running the business. Because we've been so integrated, for example, a lot of the communications part of our business is done by me, and and so sales and client stuff and design will be done by him. So if I wasn't available, then we're not going after new proposals per se. And then of course the magic of not knowing what kind of child you're going to have.
Yeah.
It could actually be super easy, but here's how we've been sort of looking at solving it. We are taking on a parenting philosophy of really holding babies. So we've got these kangaroo t-shirts for men. Ricardo has one. I'm going to have one. We have to get those this week. Actually, babies due next week.
Cool.
Where we can hold baby in beyond just a carrier.
Yeah.
Which is more for the outdoors. It's a lighter fabric. It's actually just a t-shirt. And to try to really just have baby with us and roll with it. And then similarly, when we go for business meetings, our intention is to bring a baby. And that's super new and super unusual here. And just to see, so as we build relationships with potential future clients or nurture old relationships, we just integrate baby as we've integrated marriage and everything else. So for us, it's really just not having a very clear model. And so being able, on the one hand, to invent what this is going to be, and on the other hand, having no idea how the world will receive it. So it's yet another experiment for us. And those are the types of conversations that we're having around this new chapter.
I love it. And I'll use this word because you self-proclaimed it, is you're a millennial woman. And I always tell my audience, which tends to be a little bit older than you, Gen Xers, I guess, that mothers need to develop a millennial mentality of that your life and work do not need to be in opposition, that the more we need to do the more rebellious thing and step in and say, here is all of me, and I don't have to split myself in ways that are fracturing and painful. So I wonder if you have anything more to add. It's how you see yourself generationally as maybe coming to this with different expectations or beliefs.
I got a body shiver. So it's always a really good sign that resonates as something important to me. I don't know really. I've thought about this. So of course my influences are vast, and my husband's a like deep Gen Xer. So we have a good decade and a bit of age difference too. So we've got different philosophies on certain things, but what we share is a desire to design our life.
Yes.
And we both we're of immigrant family members. The number one thing our family only ever wanted us to do is get a great education, get a great job, get a great pension, and just
stability. Yes.
Stability. So that my very first Huffington Post article was about why I felt misunderstood as a millennial and why I think this generation of mine, and I'm at the tail end of it, is misunderstood. And I think that's because we've noticed, and I have noticed, I'll speak personally then, when I look at people's lives and I watch these compartments, they all seem superficial. So inherently, while I practiced them for a good few years while I had corporate jobs before I started a business, they never felt right. They always felt like they created more stress than they solved by trying to compartmentalize. And I started to realize as I would get sort of sick and different insomnia issues that half of my anxiety was around these roles and different hats I had to keep putting on for different audiences of people. And that, wait, I'm the one common denominator everywhere. So if you don't actually accept me, then what am I doing in relationship or business or interaction with you? it's a very short term, and I mean, of course, we've been there, my husband and I ourselves, where you're dealing with people who you have to hide elements of yourself
Yes.
for. But the longer you go through that, the more painful that becomes for me anyway, and for us. And the more we said, you know what, I'd rather the short term sacrifice in some cases of certain clients that we could work with, but who would need us to be, around the clock available, which we're not doing. Then and work for the long run on just really continually standing up for what we do believe. Now, it comes with waterfalls of resistance
Right.
and waterfalls of discomfort. So I think I think because comfort's the biggest motivator for previous generations, and in many ways millennials want that too. It's not that we're void of that. It's just, I think in the uncertainty of the time we've grown up, we've had to adapt. I even started a PhD. I have a master's. I speak 5 languages. I've been working since I was 15, and I was told constantly in the job search, without explanation, we've chosen another candidate or something else. And so it's like the promises that I guess I was led to believe were sort of sacrosanct didn't turn out to be. And so reinventing things and inventing them on our own terms started to become a natural way of life for us. My husband deals with that from a different perspective, in all truth, being a Black man in the world, and having the best word we've recently heard for this is generally being related to with the subtle bigotry of low expectations. It's a really powerful term. I don't even know if it's coined, but and it's funny because as a young woman, that's something I experienced too. So just knowing, even though we didn't have the confidence as much as we do today, because of course coming together makes it more strong, and you at least have a partner in crime in sort of this, not even battle because it's just life, but in the journey of this self-defined road. It was challenging for us, and the confidence we always knew it didn't feel right. And we just kept small experiments going. Like, what if I came to work and expressed that opinion? What happens then? So, it doesn't start with like a whole revolution. At least it didn't for us, in just coming out and being unapologetic and defining everything. It started for us as mini experiments over a number of 5 to 10 years, and then finding each other, and then, kind of the next stage of that evolved. And that now will continue into parenthood. And it's funny because I've noticed my own development in the matter-of-fact way in which I talk about what we're up to, and people look at me blindly, like, well, you're doing what? You can't do that. And I was like, oh, right, I forgot that. The common narrative is you can't. Yeah, you can, actually. Just, in our case, that's the only option. So I'm willing, I think in everything, there's a funny saying, you got to be willing to take the shit sandwich that comes with, there's a shit sandwich for every option. And so we like the shit sandwich that comes with this option, and are willing to go there. So I think that's just the psychological or sort of mental approach that we take. And I feel most authentic living, because no matter what good and bad happens, it feels good and it feels true to me, and I sleep well. And that's a very different experience than the way I felt before, living a very should-driven life. So that's sort of how we've come to this approach. And I think it is partially generational, partially personality and life circumstances.
Yeah. I don't think that my hope is that it doesn't have to just be the prize of certain generation to have that mentality. So thank you.
And I would say boomers have endlessly inspired me from, Gloria Steinem. Yeah. I share a namesake. I just got her audiobook, and, that kind of bold, unapologetic approach, still with grace and self-love and love for community, has existed. It's not new to this generation. I just think that life circumstances have caused this generation, and I think having the comforts of a lot of what was provided to us allowed us to think a lot more about the design of life in a way that when you're just busy trying to make a living, you don't stop to think about, or you don't allow yourself, because God forbid you start to process those emotions. Now what?
Yeah, and I'll say, so the last word on the topic, because I could talk about it forever. As women, it might not have been safe in physical and emotional ways to proclaim that you might have the right to design your life. So I think that you have the benefit of it being safer.
It is certainly safer, and I would still say, in the 6 years my husband and I have been living this way, we've been attacked twice.
Yeah.
So these things happen still. They don't require justification. But again, anytime something, I think, when we live our truth, when we shine bright, it's as magnetic as it is confronting to another segment. So I think that's where we often get that gut feeling pushback of like, oh, we shouldn't push that boundary. And I'm just willing to push past, because it's always more rewarding on the other side.
All right. So we've spent time in this inspirational side of the coin of courage and bravery. And I'm one to say that there's always a shadow of that, and that parenthood, motherhood, is very much about unraveling vulnerability, things unpacking so that they can be put together in a new way.
Yes.
So just so everybody can identify that no one's sitting here without any vulnerabilities.
Good God,
what are some of the fears or doubts or narratives that are with you right now?
Like screaming endlessly. I probably should have mentioned this is the very first thing my husband and I talk about, is my self-defined value directly related to my professional accomplishments.
Yes.
So large, huge conversation. Oh my God. It's like that. And it's like it haunted me in every stage of my career. When I was doing market research back in a job, I was working on a why women leave the legal profession in our country kind of market research project, and studying all that sort of thing. And that was the first time I realized consciously that, oh, yeah, that motherhood and professional life are still not seen as equivalent. And of course, it's been a decade since then, and we now know that on many levels. I know that on a different level. And so even as an entrepreneur, although I'm not going to deal with what's referred to here as mommy tracking, where, you have a baby, you take your time off, and then when you get back, they give you less meaningful projects and all that sort of stuff. I still have a fear of that, because my concern now as an entrepreneur is, will I be branded now as mom? Because I'm also noticing the very, on the one hand, loving responses to all of my pregnancy-related posts, and on the other hand, worried that, so now do I get pigeonholed in a new box that now I have to work my way out of? And psychologically, like, will I be able to, from a pride perspective, will I be okay with that? Because I decided when I was 15 years old, for so many different reasons, which we won't have time to get into today, that I'll provide for myself. And that when I partner up, we will come together as two powerful individuals who have space for each other to build even more. And so the idea that I might need to rely on Ricardo more from a business perspective is probably the most exposing thing. It brings up everything from, is that a safe idea? Is that a smart idea? Everything I've done to this point has been to avoid dependency on that level. And then, in the most beautiful way, it's an opportunity for him to shine in a way that I would never let him if I didn't have a reason to. Because I would always step in there somehow as my feminist self, trying to be a contribution when I don't even need to be. So there's a deep sense of just tenderness. Like, I feel my heart right now just feeling heavy. And also, I think the other side of the coin is the feeling that, what if I stop wanting to do all the things I wanted to do now, and all I want to do is just be with Babe? And then what would that mean for everything I've done to this point? So those two things are huge for me and very real. But I'm one of those funny people who, like, it'll come to me in a store and I'll just walk through the store crying while it processes. Keep going. And that's, I should laughingly, as I find this on my desk, Rising Strong.
Right, totally.
From Brene Brown. And then I've got my map. This is my other sort of structure.
Yes, right.
To just focus weekly. And I got the weekly planner this year instead of the daily planner to give myself more space to just not try to keep up with my usual tempo of things, but just to say, okay, this week, if I had to accomplish something, what are the 3 things? Instead of trying to push myself too soon back into where life was before I had a baby, because it may not return. I don't know.
Right.
So those are the things that are just
so great. And I just feel like, as like a slightly older sister and auntie, of having gone through that same thing where, it was such a beautiful gift, but painful to receive, of realizing how much my sense of worth and value came from my professional world and even financial contribution.
Absolutely.
And be put in this very uncomfortable position where ultimately I had to reckon with the fact that my worth is not defined by any of those things, that is stable across the board. And so to expect a rumble and a reckoning of that. And then I'll say that my professional life completely has changed since, because I changed since, but there's a core of me that did not change at all. I actually have become much bolder and clearer, braver, and more honest about, the thread continues, but it's in a different shape.
I have an intuitive feeling, and this almost scares me more than all of this, because the intuitive feeling is, I think your business will grow, and I think everything you've been doing will only become more valuable, more pure, and more resonant with the right people afterward. And then the bigger fear under that is, but then what will that have meant about everything I thought till now? And then there's a pride element that's like, so what, is a woman's worth really somehow tied up or better because of a child? And then I get arrogant about it. So I think what would be cool if we have, depending when we talk after baby, is to really look at that a few months in and say, so how is that looking like it's panning out so far?
Yeah.
So
and I'm almost 7 years into this motherhood thing, and it's a daily discovery.
Okay, good.
Yes, don't rush it. All right, so my last question is more practical. Like, you and your husband are doing your business by yourselves. Please don't do parenthood all by yourselves. What structures and supports do you have in place to give you a nice holding nest and container while you do all of this creative work of becoming parents and raising a child?
Beautiful. Yeah. I feel surprising. That was one of my biggest surprises when I got pregnant, was until pregnancy, I did not like the idea of other people involved.
Yes.
It's just funny. It's actually really funny. But what I'm realizing too now, though, so in terms of those structures, is it matters to me a little less on some level who is providing those structures. Because support is support at some point.
Right,
and
that's what I mean. Like,
and there seems to be something.
You've got some.
Yes. Okay. So let's go through the sort of inventory of mine. One of my she calls herself my godmother, and I think it's so true. She's my sister from my master's program.
Okay.
She lives in Illinois, or no, she's now moved to Indiana. So she's got one and a half year old, and expecting her second, and she's doing her PhD. And this is one of those friends of mine who it's the one that you look at and you're like, how did you find time to knit the entire Halloween costume and send me a care package and take care of all those things and hand in your paper? And so she has been my number one guide, like my non-judgmental, no shame, no crap friend. And FaceTime is how we communicate. And she's always checking in, and I'm checking in on her. And it's just that feeling sometimes, like I've called her just being like, I need to just be straight. Today I hate being pregnant. I hate this whole journey. And then tomorrow I'll be like, oh my God, I love it today. And then we'll share all of that. So she's going to continue to be sort of just soul sister cheerleader, I think. And so that's Alicia. In terms of my mother-in-law, she's a huge just tenderness support. She's one of the few people in the world I've ever met who, she lives in another city, so she's about 3 hours away, but she's going to come to stay with us. After we give birth, within 24 hours, she'll take a train up and stay with us for the first week. And she's being retired and having a bit more space. We'll be able to come in to the city every so often if there's one of those weeks of development or of project work where it's just like, this week it's not up to us, like someone else needs to come in. And I think for the most part, there's that. Those two people are like the core. Then there's our cleaning support, which every single week I'm like, do we really need her? Should we really? And I've said that for the last 3 years, every single week that we've had her here. But yeah, we do.
Yes, and I would say most new moms, like on their wish list is someone to clean the house. Yeah.
Yeah. And but it's like the guilt doesn't leave me. And my sense of like, do I really need to do that? I'm sure being sleep deprived, that'll only become more valuable. But it's funny how I still have the tape going of
It's your mess. You should clean
it's
it
mine.
up.
I should clean it up, or we should just be more tidy. It's just like whatever. And then I think for me, to be honest, I have looked for a lot of support groups like mom groups, but I don't find the philosophy resonating as well with me because I am doing birth a little different. And I'm also doing life a little different. Everyone's automatic is like, when are you going back to work? Or when your husband comes home from work. And all of those scenarios for me are very different. So I found it challenging to find a real connection where that's been, there. So I just today joined.
Yeah, I was going to say, come hang out with our gang.
Yeah. Because I think it's key that these women also be entrepreneurs or at least working from home or something of that nature so that we have similar lifestyles to learn from each other. And then, there's just the reality of online. And I think most of my pregnancy has been guided. I really like that one-way experience, funny enough.
Yeah.
Where I don't have to like bring energy to it. I get to just research and vet for myself what's feeling good. Midwife support will be wonderful for the first little while. But I think one thing that is still a very big question mark is I'm not feeling confident about the idea of any kind of child care, which is something my husband and I have just decided, you know what, let's just play that by ear.
Yeah.
Let's see, from a financial perspective, it just feels weird. Also I don't even know my baby yet. Like the idea of right now just having a plan to give baby to somebody else to take care of so I can do other things is really just a very weird feeling. So I'm sure at some point that will make sense, but where I stand now feels like, and I've been laughed at a lot for this by people. This is the judgment circle of motherhood. I love it. Get your kid like signed up right now because you're going to want them out or you're going to want that time. And I'm like, I don't know. My husband and I are really a team, and if I'm in that zone, there's so many friends. We have a meal train starting, our friend of mine organized that. So in January for every day for like that first month, someone's coming by at 6:00 with a meal for an hour to like, see babe, help out, help do dishes, bring them a meal. And like, that's going to be probably the biggest gift ever, So there's like little mini things. There's not one thing, but we'll see. And then, just in terms of a physical perspective, I do have a chiropractor and acupuncturist, who I will probably have to really like make sure I go and see because I'll just want to be at home, but just to make sure that my body's healing internally, so these are mindful things, but again, I'm so curious to see where I just go, ugh, or where I think, oh, that could slide after the fact, if at all. So we'll see.
Yes. You are all potential right now, and then you will be in a place where you will just have to be responding to the truth of what is from moment to moment.
You got it.
So we're really excited for you. At the time of this recording, anyone who's watching or listening, Gloria and Ricardo the baby is due to come in 8 days. So I think I'll get this out pretty soon, so we can a whole group of people can be holding you in mind as you go into that transition. And then we'll just stay in touch about if and when it makes sense to let's revisit this conversation from another angle. So thank you so much for taking time out of your beautiful life. All right. If anybody wants to learn more about Gloria, they can go to wedge15.com. That's wedge and then the number 15.com. All right. Thank you, Gloria.
Thanks, Jess.